I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Today we're reading from the book of Judges, chapter 12, and let's focus on verses 5 and 6. The Gileadites seized the fords of the Jordan before the Ephraimites arrived. And when any Ephraimite who escaped said, "Let me cross over," the men of Gilead would say to him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" And if he said no, then they would say to him, "Well, then say Shibboleth." And then he would say Sibboleth, for he could not pronounce it right. And then they would take him and kill him at the fords of the Jordan. There fell at that time 42,000 Ephraimites. Now, some people are not content to just sit either on the right or the left hand of the kingdom. They insist on occupying the throne itself. And that pretty much describes Ephraim completely. After having brushed off Jephthah's plea for help in the fight against Ammon, Ephraim had the nerve to charge Jephthah by saying, "Why didn't you call us to go out with you?" And in their pride, they were somebodies. And you just don't treat somebodies like that. But Jephthah, having been a nobody in chapter 11, was not impressed with somebodies. Jephthah reminds Ephraim that he had in fact summoned Ephraim and they had left him in the lurch, and he had the emails to prove it. However, the Lord accomplished what Ephraim had failed to do. Perhaps Ephraim was expecting what Gideon had done for them. Just let him kind of jump on the end of the pile at the end of the tackle and get some of the glory. But that's not what they got. They didn't get Gideon's psychology. They got Jephthah's sword. And the whole thing escalated when the Ephraimites began flinging racial slurs at Jephthah's men who were from Gilead. Jephthah returns the gesture with a little prejudice of his own by asking them to pronounce a certain word. And the high-classed, prideful Ephraimite dialect became their death signal. Their pride is what killed them. It was much the same way that a Southern accent might have been detectable to Yankee soldiers during the American Civil War. And basically, we have an indictment against pride. Something within the human spirit always drives us to dominate, to control, and to be recognized. And it flourishes in the church of our culture, doesn't it? I saw it a lot when I was in the Christian music business. Every Christian longs to be the ones who were wearing the Letterman sweater on Jesus's varsity squad. And it's difficult for us to rejoice in God's saving work when we're not the celebrity in the middle of it all. And so we seldom like to play the game unless people will appropriately stroke our egos for having done it. And so we must fight against taking the credit for accomplishing what can only be done through the Holy Spirit. And we have to remain humble and remind ourselves that while we may be co-inheritors with the Messiah, we're also slaves with the Master. And we're nothing apart from the redeeming grace and mercy of Jesus and the power of the Holy Spirit. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. You know, Groundworks Ministries exists because of the faithful donations of people like yourself. And if you're not already, would you consider donating on a regular basis to Groundworks Ministries? Because we could really use your help, because it helps us to get the word out to more and more people. You know, revival doesn't come from a platform or a stage. It comes when God's people first return to His word, obey it, and share it with others. Check us out at groundworksministries.com.